All right, so we are back out at UCLA campus. There's some noise behind us because right now they are spraying down the Free Gaza graffiti that was scrawled across Royce Hall as part of the beautiful encampment against the genocide that the U.S. is backing and Israel is carrying out against the Palestinian people in Gaza. Just a week ago, there were tents. There were hundreds of people camped out, students occupying this lawn behind us. And it was part of a nationwide movement of occupations, encampments, and protest against the genocide in Gaza among students and others throughout society. I am here today with Rafael Caderas and Amina, who were swept up and arrested on Monday morning with about 45 others here on campus as part of what is now a massive wave of arrests and repression against student protesters and others across this country. More than 2,500 have been arrested. Students have been expelled and suspended. People have been doxxed and blacklisted. Their careers and lives have been threatened. People have been sent to the hospital. They've been brutalized by police and Zionist thugs. And so we are here today to talk some about the significance of all of this. Rafael, Amina, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Sansar.
Yeah, thanks so much.
All right, so I want to start out by just asking you, Rafael, how do you understand the significance of this mass wave of arrests and repression? I know that among those who've been arrested, among those who've been attacked, and among those in the broader campus community here at UCLA and actually across the country, a lot of people have been really shocked and trying to make sense of what is going on with this. Why is there such violent repression?
Yeah, it is shocking to a lot of people. And, you'd think, these universities claim to be centers of that value free speech, that value, inquiry, that want their students to be politically engaged. You'd think these universities would be applauding their students for, taking a stand and on the side of justice, about something halfway across the world that doesn't affect them personally, but they're, feel so strongly about it. They're opening up a conversation on campus. You'd think these universities would be applauding these students. No, these universities are sending the police after them. They're sending the CHP, California Highway Patrol. They're sending in riot police. They're letting the Zionists right here on this campus, brutalize students for hours while the police stand on the side. That, for people who don't know, they should watch last week's episode to see how the Zionist pro-Israeli forces, hundreds of them on this campus, came with bear spray. They came with, metal rods and wooden pallets and tried to destroy the camp. And the students held strong in the face of this. But all across this country, we're seeing, at Dartmouth College, the camp that they set up, the Anti-Genocide, pro-Palestine divestment camp, lasted about 2 hours before the police came in and destroyed it. So what is it that these university administrations, that these police, that the government, Biden is spending pretty much almost every day demonizing these camps. Just the other day, he's out, spreading the big lie that there's some kind of wave of anti-Semitism sweeping these college campuses. This is complete bullshit. It's not anti-Semitism. It's anti-genocide. So why is this happening? It's because, as Bob Avakian has said repeatedly in his social media messages, fundamental interests of this system are at stake because the state of Israel plays a special role as a heavily armed bastion of support for U.S. imperialist interests in the Middle East, which is a strategic part of the world. It's where a lot of the oil gets produced. It's a crossroads of world trade. And the United States, especially at the elite universities, right in the heart of the empire, they cannot tolerate even any questioning of the fundamental such a strategic interest of this system, which is what the state of Israel represents. And even more than that, they are scared about a whole generation losing their allegiance to this system as a whole. Losing their allegiance to America, no longer being invested in the crimes that this country perpetrates all over the world, from Korea to Vietnam to Iraq to Afghanistan to right now backing a genocide in Gaza. And they are worried about students turning against this empire. Like happened in the 1960s. We saw how the revolts at Columbia University, at UC Berkeley, at Madison, Wisconsin, how that rippled throughout society and, radicalized the whole generation, and they can't tolerate that.
Amina, I understand that I want to talk more about some of the conversations you had with people in jail while being detained and all of this. But one of the things I understand came up was a question of whether all the media coverage about the encampments and the attacks and the arrests on the encampments, whether this is a distraction taking people's eyes off of Gaza. And how do you understand that? How do you speak to that?
I mean, the simple answer is it's not a distraction. It's actually a great inspiration. You know, millions and millions of people are seeing exactly what he was working through. You know, students at elite institutions, you know, putting everything on the line, their careers, their jobs, their future, and really to take a stand, to take a basic stand that they are in opposition to this genocide, and really calling and insisting that their universities, that their peers, that others actually take a stand, and really drawing a dividing line by like sleeping out, camping out, you know, and really like, you know, putting a lot of sacrifice, you know, on to the side and saying, no, we're not going to be complicit in the face of like a tremendous crime against humanity, you know. And I think that is the lesson that people have to draw from this, you know, that with great inspiration and take lead from that. And it is the reality that the resistance does need to grow, you know. And I think that's sort of the moral position that they're taking. And I think that everybody actually needs to grab hold of that lesson and stand with them and grow in our millions to actually put a stop to this.
You know, we want to, in that light, play a couple of excerpts that we've found in the media of students speaking about why they took these stands and the courage they're displaying.
Over the last 6 months, more than 124 people in my family have been brutally killed by the Israeli occupation forces. For the last 6 months, I have had to wake up to messages of my cousin being shot on his bike, of my aunt going blind because she can't get medication for her blood pressure, of my entire uncle's house falling down on them. There is nothing this country can do, nothing the police can do, nothing this administration can do to me that will scare me from fighting for justice.
I understand that students are being threatened with disciplinary action for being in there.
They gave us some ridiculous notice out here saying that like participants in the quad encampment, which no longer exists thanks to them, are facing like an interim leave of absence as well as a criminal trespass charge. I have no idea if that's just a scare tactic or if it's real, but it doesn't matter because the difference between us and people like these cops is that there are limits to when we continue following orders. And when you're talking about a genocide visited upon a colonized population of 2 million people trapped in a ghetto that's as long as a marathon and 6 miles wide, when that ghetto is being systematically starved, slaughtered, every hospital bombed, every university bombed, 70% of homes destroyed, 40,000 people murdered, 15,000 children murdered, the entire population on the brink of starvation, we say, and if our government and our academic institutions are complicit in this, there comes a point where we say we're not following orders and it doesn't matter what you do to us because there are principles and there are human lives that matter more than our careers and our futures, and that's what separates us from people like Paul Olivisatos, the coward president of this university, and these coward cops that come in terrorizing an encampment while people are sleeping.
You know, these are incredibly stirring voices that we just played, very inspiring, and we've seen this echoed by people here on this campus, other campuses in Southern California, across the country, in Texas and Minnesota and Wisconsin and Vermont, all across the country. I want to go back to some of the people, and both of you could speak to this, but some of the students that you were locked up with, zip-tied for hours the other morning, and what were some of the conversations like? How were they processing? Who were they? What had motivated them?
I mean, one thing to clearly understand, these are people students that 2 weeks ago, like, had never done anything like this, you know, had never actually felt like I have to take a political stand against what this government is doing. And it was heavy, you know. It's not like people woke up that morning and go, oh, I'm going to go get arrested. They were like, what is my mom going to think? I can't show my face on camera, you know, like I can't, you know, oh my God, who's my emergency contact? I have no, you know, please don't call my mom. Like that was actually, you know, or people were weighing like, oh my God, you know, I want I really want to graduate. Is this going to stay on my record? Well, and kind of really at the same time, you know, two conflicting thoughts at the same time going, well, you know what, it doesn't matter, you know, like I am here and I am taking the correct stand against, you know, against a genocide. And that is actually more important than anything that I have to personally go through. You know, it was, or you had like, you had different contingents of students, you know, even a theater group student that were just like, you know, we're singing, we're trying to memorize the legal number through song. We're also going like, you know, okay, what's the perfect, you know, song for this occasion, you know, and start, we go, they're like Willie Nelson, no Les Mis, like we just have to, you know, just really trying to keep the enthusiasm up, you know, of like just how correct we are. And people are also saying, you know, wow, this university fears us. They fear us. You know, the only way that they have to respond to this is by arresting us. You know, we are strong, and just everybody kind of having each other's back and saying like, no, you know, we're up against something much bigger than just, you know, our individual, you know, kind of sacrifices. We're up against, you know, kind of, we're here together, and we're up against, you know, kind of it's standing in opposition to this genocide, and that actually matters, you know.
Well, I think that's important, and people are going through really big changes really fast. This is not only a turning point period in this society, in history, it's also a turning point for many people in their own lives who are finding themselves inspired by others and outraged by an atrocity and crime against humanity, putting themselves in doing things they never anticipated, acting in ways they never expected they would, finding courage they never thought they'd find. And now we have a whole generation being shaped by this, and 2,500 among them, including the two of you arrested on both coasts now in this upsurge, who have been arrested and who actually are an important moral force. They're facing charges, they're facing heavy stakes, many of them, but there's also something very important we've raised the demand that the charges be dropped against all the protesters, that all of the students get amnesty on their suspensions, expulsions, that we have the backs of everybody who's come under attack for this. And what's the importance of building the political defense for those who've been arrested and for everybody else as part of strengthening the fight to stop this genocide?
Yeah, well, I think it is important that, you know, many of the protest movements throughout the country have also raised the demand for amnesty. There's faculty, you know, who have signed petitions demanding charges be dropped and suspensions be dropped on these students. Everywhere people have been arrested, there's been jail support. All this is really important part of the defense, but I think it's also important that we recognize that the defense of these 2,500 people who've been arrested and more every day that are being arrested, this can actually be turned into offense against this genocidal war, you know, offense against this system that would throw protesters trying to stop a genocide in prison. You know, we got to use this as an opportunity to expose the crimes of Israel in the United States before the whole world. We have to use this as an opportunity to expose the fact that, you know, for all their talk of rights, and we should fight for the rights that we do have, you know, and are the rights that have been blatantly violated, we should fight, you know, on the legal grounds, which we do have. Almost everywhere we've gone, the police, you know, almost everywhere people have been arrested, the police have blatantly violated people's legal rights, their right to assemble, their right to free speech, their right to protest, all this. But even more, we got to expose the bankrupt nature of a system that would throw people trying to stop a genocide in jail, that would suspend them, that would expel them. And I just have to say, you know, when we make a revolution and get rid of this system and bring it to being a whole new socialist society based on the Constitution for the new Socialist Republic written by the revolutionary leader Bob Avakian, if there were people, including, you know, pro-Israel people or pro-America people who rallied on a college campus like this in opposition to the socialist government, we would allow that to happen. We would encourage it. We would use it as an opportunity to open up a debate about what kind of society we want to live in. You know, this should be things like this are actually, you know, in opposition to the idea that these student protesters are disrupting education. This is one of the best educational experiences to actually learn about the world and learn about, you know, what's really going on, why it's happening, where the real interests of humanity are. So let's come to the defense of these people who are under attack in these trials, and I mean in these legal cases. and let's use it as an opportunity to expose this system and to get the real interests of humanity out before the eyes of the world. And let's beat these charges.
So I want to thank you, Raphael and Amina, for being out in the streets with so many others demanding an end to this genocide, spreading the word about revolution, standing strong in the face of things brought down on both of you, and for coming here on the Revolution Nothing Less show to talk to us today. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you, and thank you also for being on the front lines. I know you were here when all this went down at UCLA too.
Yes.